okay. Remember to tell me your name because I won't be able to see your name of who's commenting. So please give me your name as well as your comment or your question for our featured author, which I'm so excited to talk to tonight. Nothing really more than what we talked about Friday night going on. I do have a book coming out April 10th. My ARC readers have been commenting on it and positive reviews coming out about it now. If you're on my ARC team, let me know how you like it. Say something in the comments. And that's April the 10th. It's still on pre-order. You can still get it. And I'm working on Silent Surrender, which will be the first book in the second generation Royal Heirs series. And I know that you guys are excited about that. Hey, Karen. We'll give just a few more minutes for that a few more people come in, and then we will introduce our featured author. How are you, Karen? Let me know how you are too, guys. Let me know if you're okay. Are you okay? We're just having uncommonly warm weather here in North Carolina, and it's just so strange. We have our air conditioning on. It's been like 80. Okay, I coughed, but I promise it was just. Has been in the 80s, 80, 81 degrees for the past few days, and we've turned our air conditioning on. It's just weird. This early in the year to have temperatures that warm here in North Carolina. Please remember to put your name in the comment because I don't know who said it. I see that Karen said something. I see somebody else said hi, but I don't know who it is. And I know that someone said, we'll see if I can show you what I see. See, it just says Facebook user. I'm good, thank you. I don't know who said it. But I do know that this was said by Karen. So just remember to include your name. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get started. The first book that I read of our featured author was, gosh, I can't even remember the name of it. It was probably, oh gosh, I'm looking through her, The Runaway Bride. That was my first book that I ever read of hers. And it was like I had to keep reading. And she quickly pulled me in as she's now one of my one-click authors. So let me bring her on screen with us. However, let me explain. Do you remember how I used to be? I didn't want to show my face on camera. Okay. You guys understand that. Vanessa also doesn't want to be seen on camera, and I can respect that. So we're going to do this a little differently this time. So let's see if we can. This is not Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. I figured that since I like to not show my face for personal and safety reasons, I thought maybe this guy would be a good alternative. He's definitely cuter than I am.
Well, I will say that my group has a thing for cowboys. On Friday, we have Hot Guy Friday, and cowboys are usually always the preferred hot guy that they post. And we have to kind of corral Pat a little bit if she gets out of hand.
Well,
Past
I
years.
can't blame anybody. I write lots and lots of cowboys, and so much so that I put more than one in most of my books, so I can definitely relate.
Yeah. um, oh, we have a whole lot joining us now. Guys, if you have questions for Vanessa, go ahead and leave them in the comments, but remember to give me your name too. And Karen says that she loves cowboys too. Okay, let's get acquainted here. Tell us a little bit about how you got started writing. Well, first of all, where are you at, if you don't mind sharing that?
I'd like to say I'm with this hot little guy, but I am not. I am sitting in my office by myself. I live in the wild, wild west of Colorado. However, almost all of my books are set in Montana, and that's because we lived there for 5 years and love it up there. However, I am still in the wild, wild west.
So I've never been to Colorado, but in my mind at this time of the year, there's like snow on the ground. Is that the way it really is?
I don't live way up in the mountains, but I do see the mountains from where I am. March and April are the snowiest months of the year because it's springtime. So yes, there is often quite a bit of snow here this time of year. Last spring, our kids get out of school right before Memorial Day weekend, and we had a little 8th grade continuation ceremony, and it had snowed 6 inches, and it was 40 degrees out May 23rd. So
wow.
I'm sure a lot of your listeners and watchers also live in places like the Wild Wild West, where spring doesn't really, I don't know, it's not very nice.
Yeah, exactly. Do you ski?
I can make it down the hill. Mm-hmm. However, if you ask my son, the answer is no.
Well, I don't, but my kids do. So I'm sure that you would laugh at our skiing around here in North Carolina. But we do have a mountain. So tell us a little bit about how you got into writing.
It started actually a really long time ago when I was working in an office, and a coworker and I were talking about romance books. I love to read romance books, and I have for a long, long time. And he had said, "How hard is it to write a romance book?" And I, of course, was like, "Yeah, how hard is it? Let's write one." So I don't do anything really half-hearted, and I sort of went with it maybe a little bit to the extreme, and I decided to start writing one, which I'm not a writer by any means. I went to art school for college. I was a graphic designer by trade, not a writer. And so in order to immerse myself in how to write a romance book, I joined the Colorado Romance Writers Association. And my first day, I was herded, literally, like this lady herded me into a group of others, and I was told I had to be in a critique group immediately. I'm much of an introvert, and I was a little panicked because all I wanted to do was sit in the back and just listen for a while, and yet I was herded into with this group of ladies, and we worked together every 2 weeks on these stories. This was back in the day when you had to query letter Harlequin, and so we got together and met and started writing books. And I wrote this Western that had a woman, the heroine was kidnapped 3 different times in the book. So it was pretty bad. It was really, really bad. Anyway, to move things along, I moved to Montana and was separated from the group and didn't write anything for a long time. While I was there, the online publishing came about, and I started writing again, and I came up with an idea for a book which is now, I'm having a moment on what my own book is called. So you'll have to give me a second. Because
I have those too.
Because I feel silly. It was originally called Gnome on the Range, and I have changed the name, and I feel like a ding-a-ling because I'm forgetting. The series is Small Town Romance with Montana Fire is the name of the book. Thank you, everybody, for being patient with me. Montana Fire was actually my first book that I wrote, and it's actually a romantic comedy, but it is set in Montana, and it does have cute cowboys in it. And then from there, I decided to toggle over to steamier books, and there we go.
Well, you know my next question, don't you? How did you get into writing Menage?
That's a good question. So back in the day, good old 5 years ago, there wasn't any steamy Westerns, like really steamy Westerns. There were a lot of sweet ones, a lot of Mailer Brides, behind closed bedroom doors, or maybe just a kiss on screen kind of things. But there were no real steamy stuff out there. And I wanted to write them because I love them. And there weren't any Menage cowboy romances. And so I thought I would throw one out there and do it. And it kind of worked. The first one I did was Their Kidnapped Bride. That was the first book in the Bridgewater Menage series. And so that one sort of took off. And then I went on from there. And that you had mentioned that the first book you read was Their Runaway Bride. And that was actually written, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 books into the series as a prequel, because one of the character, Anne, who's been around for a long time, never had a story. And I wanted to sort of segue into how the guys ended up in Bridgewater. So that's how Their Runaway Bride came about.
So tell everybody what time period Bridgewater is.
1885 Montana. And even though the books do progress forward, for example, Anne has a baby and other people have babies in the book, I keep it at 1885 just because if I moved them forward, they might have cars and stuff by the time I got through all the series. So I just stick with 1885.
So you have Bridgewater Menage series, and then you have Bridgewater County. Right?
That's right.
So what is the time? Tell everybody the time period of Bridgewater County.
Bridgewater County is contemporary. So after a while on writing historical, I get the urge to write some contemporary. There's electricity and maybe some adult toys and things and cars and things like that you can't put into historical books. And so I had the urge to do a contemporary, but I wanted to keep going with the Bridgewater series. And so I decided to invent the modern town of Bridgewater that was built based off of their ancestors who were the original founders of the Bridgewater series.
And I thought that was so neat. I just loved that.
I think it makes it a little bit more realistic, even though it completely isn't. It kind of gives hope that the people back in the historical days were able to have happy relationships and grow families and things like that, and their way of life, which I think is really nice, stuck with the town and continue to today.
Exactly. Now, tell us how you came up with the beefcake.
With the
I love
beefcakes?
The title. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was on a trip with my family and I had walked away from, it was called a vacation. I don't really take many of those, but it was a vacation where I didn't have a computer, didn't have internet, didn't have email, no Facebook, nothing. And so I was able to walk away from being Vanessa for almost a month. And I was able to just sort of think and stew on what I wanted to do next. I have to admit that my idea came from Bugs Bunny. I know I saw the look on your face. For those of you who follow Looney Tunes and Bugs Bunny, and you guys will all have to maybe go to YouTube or your old discs of Bugs Bunny. But in a Bugs Bunny short, there is Bugs Bunny talking about, he's fighting a knight, like a medieval knight. And he says sirloin of beef, and he says, the Duke of Ellington, and all these different names that play off of royal or regal terms. And so Bugs Bunny actually used sirloin of beef in that. And that prompted me to the title, and I loved it as an idea for a contemporary Western. And then I was like, okay, if I do the beef theme, what other titles could I use? And of course, T-bone, we do not need to really go into why. And then tri-tip made complete sense because there's 3 guys. And so, of course, I had to put 3 in that book. And then skirt steak, of course, I had to have the heroine of one of the books be the lead instead of the guys. And she, of course, wears a skirt. And then porterhouse was a kind of steak, and I named the guy Porter. So that's how I came about it. But I couldn't go any further than that because I sort of ran out of meat cuts. You can't call someone a beef.
There's filet. You didn't do filet. Bacon wrap filet.
So if anyone wants to comment here on your screen with alternate beef titles, you're welcome to do so. I literally went on to butchers' websites tracking down other cuts of meat, hanger steaks, all these other ones, but none of them really worked. So if anyone wants to comment
hanger steak could be about a pilot.
Oh, you're right. It totally could. I didn't think of that.
You're welcome, Vanessa.
I shall have to write the 6th book now.
Yes. Okay. If anybody else can come up with a title, comment and let us know.
Yes, please let me know. I have run out of meat.
Okay, I'm going to leave that one alone. Okay. Tell us a little bit about...
Let me rephrase that.
Okay, writing Menage. This is totally, I was talking about your series, but how do you keep everything straight having 3? Because it's hard enough for me with 2.
It is hard. It's very hard. And I think my editor and a lot of readers will find oopsies in my books where I will name the character wrong. That is definitely a problem. I will give you guys a little secret that in all of my Menage books, the heroes all have different hair color. Okay. So one has to be dark-haired and one has to be light-haired, or one has to be red-headed, or that kind of scenarios, because I have to mentally have them look completely different than each other in my mind in order for me to keep them separate.
Right. I knew one author that actually had dolls that she used to make sure the positioning and everything was correct as she wrote. But I just couldn't imagine keeping 3 people's body parts straight.
Well, I met a reader one time at an event, and she had said that she actually thought I had 2 cowboys in my bed. I walked around with chaps and like a whip or something like that. I don't really. I was really surprised because I must put off an exceptionally good branding package for me to be that much of a cowgirl. So I can say with all sarcasm that I am able to figure out how to make everything work because I have 2 cowboys in my bed.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, the truth is, it's going to be pretty crowded with me and my husband. So.
Okay, we have a title for you.
I see that. I have the same comments on my screen. Strip steak is bottom round. That's good, and I see strip steak as well.
Let's see. Strip steak. Let's see. Debbie says strip steak could be a male stripper. There you go.
I think those are great ideas, but I need phone in order to write these extra books.
Well, my group, we just do whatever we can to help authors out. So I'm glad we can help you.
I am going to write them down, though. I really am actually writing these down because you never know when I have the urge to go back into it and pick up a series. And I really was out of meat ideas. So I am actually right this second Writing Down, Bottom Round, and Strip Steak.
Don't forget, what was it, Hanger?
Hanger Steak was the pilot. That's right. Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about the Wild Mountain Men series.
Okay.
Book 1, of course, was our featured book of the month, but I have already read, and I'm not going to give any spoilers away, so don't anybody else give spoilers away if you've read the entire series. But you know, I've read all 4 books, and so I went back and reread book 1, and now that I know what happened, it made rereading book 1 so much deeper for me. So my question is, when you write your series, do you already know what's going to happen when you carry across a murder like you did in book 1, and you carry it across a series? How do you plan that out? What's your method?
Well, Wild Mountain Men, with Mountain Darkness being the first book, is the first series that I've written that has an overarching plot that crosses over all the books in the series.
Okay.
So while each of the 4 books has its own heroine and heroes and their own story that gets accomplished and finalized and happily ever after in each book, there is a murder mystery that extends across all 4 books. That's the first time I've ever done that, and I wanted to try it as a concept. So I did know the plot of the murder across all 4 books. Like, I knew how it happened and who did it and all that. And I knew what I wanted. I did. I knew what I wanted to get accomplished across the 4 books to get from start to finish with the murder theme. However, the 4 stories, the heroes and heroines of each book, I didn't know what they were going to be about. I did know that I had to identify the heroes or heroines so that they were all tied in to the murder scenario. For example, in book 1, one of the heroes' sister is the woman who was murdered. In book 2, and I'm taking a moment because I'm forgetting.
Mountain Delights.
Right, one of the heroes' father did something. That's all I'm going to say. In book 3, I've forgotten everything about book 3. But in book 4, it's the woman detective who's trying to find the murderer is in it. So there's a theme across the characters are in there for a reason. However, their conflicts and issues that they have, I had to figure out as I went from book to book to book. I can't figure out that much plot at one time.
Yeah. So do you come up with, when you're planning out a series, do you plan out each book in the series, or do you write one book and then come up with the next book in the series?
It depends. So, for example, the Bridgewater Menage series, the one that you said you started with, I just started with 1 book, and that was it. And then it did well, and I went on to another book, and I went on another book, and so on, and it kept doing well. And so I kept going, and then I got kind of tired of it. That's why I moved on. And I actually went back last summer and added 2 more books to that series because I wanted to go back there. It felt good to go back. As for other books, usually I plan 3 books for a series because I'm a series writer. Every once in a while I'll write a standalone, but they're very rare. I like to write a minimum of 3 books in a series. And so I plan for 3. If they do well, I grow them larger. If they don't do well, they stop at 3. So, for example, the Wild Mountain Men series with Mountain Darkness is book 1. It was supposed to be 5 books. And Poppy, which, if you've read the series, was supposed to get a book.
Yes.
And I was done. This was back in, January, February, and I just hit a wall and I was done. I couldn't write more of the series. Sorry, people, but that happens sometimes. And so I had
We really want Poppy.
I know, but if you read the bonus content at the end of the last book, you'll find out what happened to Poppy. And so I actually shrunk that series down from 5 books to 4 because I needed to finish the series up. Now, back to Steel Ranch with Spurred, Wrangled, Tangled, Hitched, and Lassoed.
Huh?
That series was interesting because I identified, I think, 3. No, and I went on to 4, and I added the 5th one. And interestingly enough, in that book, the 5th book, there is a twist at the end of the last book that turns out worked exceptionally well for the entire series. I'm not going to say more than that because I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but I did not plan it. All of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, this would totally work. And so it turned into a twist without even me knowing until the very end.
Well, now I have to go back and reread it.
I think you'll have to. We'll talk about it. Get in there.
Let's see.
So I see someone's comment about twins. May I answer Danielle's question?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So, hi, Danielle. I hope you are well. Twins. Okay, so here's the deal about twins. The retailers don't like siblings. 2 guys with 1 woman. Amazon's okay with it, and you'll see a lot of, well, stepbrother doesn't count because they're technically legally not related. But if you got 2 brothers together, Amazon might take it, but Apple does not. Apple will ban those books. Here's an example. A Wanton Woman in my mail order Bride of Slate Springs. Is it Wanton Woman? Yes. I believe it's a Wanton Woman, the first one in that series. It originally had brothers and twins, not twins, but brothers. And it was written, edited live. Apple banned it. I had to go back into the Apple version and turn them into friends. So here's a little trivia thing. If you are reading A Wanton Woman on Apple versus the other retailers, you have 2 different books. So on Amazon, etc., it is they're brothers, and then on Apple they are not. So to answer your question, Danielle, I don't do twins because Apple does not like siblings.
So, following that up a little bit, covers for Menage. I know in my covers there's certain things that you have, especially Amazon, do not like on covers that you have to be careful about. Is there anything like that for Menage covers?
I don't really have. I'm knocking on wood as I say this, so don't jinx me from this conversation. I haven't really had issues with Menage covers in general because, or with covers in general because, I don't know, unless someone is truly, really inappropriately naked or the clinch is so inappropriate that I don't think that there is an issue with it. My challenge with Menage covers is finding a trio for them.
How do you do that?
I search really hard. And some of the covers are actually 2 images put together. It's a clinch cover of a man and a woman, and then I add an extra man into it. So as I said, my past is a graphic designer, so I do my own covers. And so I'm able to go into Photoshop and do some serious manipulation. But it's very, very hard. It's very hard to find extensive library of Menage stock photos. The challenge with them also is you just can't put 2 men on the cover. You have to have a lady between the 2 men because otherwise it comes across as a gay romance. And now there's nothing wrong with that genre specifically, but that's not the market I'm tapping into. And so I have to be cautious as to make sure that my cover speaks without words directly to my target audience. I think when you look at the covers with 2 men and 1 woman on it, it's pretty obvious what you're getting.
Yeah. Well, I knew there had to be. I would have thought that it would be touchy how you had to do.
I haven't had much trouble with it. Maybe it's because I try to be a little bit reserved with the covers, even though the interiors might not be.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I kind of shocked myself liking them. I will admit to that. And I will also admit to liking them. But what what I love about them is it's not all about the sex. And even though they're a threesome, it's more the heart of the story than it focuses on that, the way that you do it.
Right. Well, thank you. That's nice of you to say, because I think that's really important, because while they are very steamy and they are menage, they still are romances. And they're fantasy. They're pure fantasy. I don't get me wrong, there are polyamorous couples out there that really live that life, but I'm striving for true fantasy. I want someone to sit down and read a book that they find not only potentially heart-tugging, but also steamy, because someone interviewed me about incorporating a large amount of anal sex into my books. And they said I was an expert on it, which I'm going to get into. However, I will say that it's okay for people to read books with that in it, or with two men in it, even though they don't personally want that in their life. I have a husband, I think everyone who's listening into this, who's married in a relationship or not, but knows a man, doesn't need two of them. I mean, who needs two husbands? I mean, really, one's plenty, right?
Especially these days under the shelter in place.
Right, but it's okay to be stuck with one of my books and live vicariously through theirs. So the example I used was, everyone knows the Harry Potter books and loves to read them, almost everybody, or seen the movies. And while you enjoy reading about Harry Potter flying on a broomstick, you might be horribly afraid of heights. It's okay for you to read a book that has broomstick flying in it if you're petrified of going up onto the second floor of a building. In this case, if you aren't really into menage or the various steamy encounters that go along with it, that's okay. It doesn't mean you have to do it in your real life. It's okay to enjoy reading about it.
Exactly. And but like I said, it's the heart of the story that pulled me in more than it was the sex of the story. And I just thought that you write that so well, to have that as the forefront of the story, I feel like. So let's get to some questions that have been, I'll let everyone ask me questions beforehand. What books do you like to read?
I do love to read romance books. I definitely do. I read a lot of them. And I read a lot. I probably read 2 hours a day, maybe a lot. I don't really watch TV at all. Okay, this day and age, I do watch a little bit of Netflix, but I don't really watch TV. We don't have satellite or anything, so it's easy to avoid it. But that gives me a lot of time to read. So I do enjoy romance. I love to read romantic suspense. And I do like a good mystery where you have to like stick it in the freezer because it's a little creepy. I also like cozy mysteries, ones where there's like recipes in them, or they're set in England and you need to go and make a cup of tea that I don't usually do in my house. So those kinds of books, but I will rotate on my Kindle when I get something off of the internet. I usually stick more to romance. However, when I go to the library and get actual hardback or paperback books, I will be drawn to a larger variety of choices because they're right in front of me instead of, it's hard to see as many books at one time on your screen on your computer.
Right. What is the one thing you'd like readers to take away from your books?
Take away from what?
What's one thing you would like your readers to take away from your books?
Oh, from my books. Escape a couple hours or however long it takes you to read. Just time to forget about your day, to sit down and get cozy and comfortable and immerse yourself in somewhere else. I do get people who write me and say thank you. Their husband or their significant other thanks me as well because they read the book and had a little sexy times of their own. So I do like to get those kinds of notes where they read the book and had a little bit of extra fun from them.
I want to ask my readers if they noticed that Vanessa also does shower scenes very well.
Shower scenes?
Yeah, I have been teased about my shower scenes.
I have to now think about shower scenes. I got to think of one. My goodness. Out of all the scenes, I would have thought you said it would not have been a shower scene. So you caught me off guard, like hay bales or yeah.
Yes, shower scene.
I think I find that while I find there's a lot of spontaneity in life, I feel like people need to be clean sometimes too. Oh, there was the shower scene because there was a skunk in a book. I won't say more than that.
Well, you had a shower scene in this book, Mountain Darkness.
Okay. I apologize. I don't remember even the characters' names in my last book. I will tell people that there was a scene in, I think, book 2 where there was a skunk involved. And that is based on a true story.
Really?
So if people are interested in my skunk story, I'd be happy to share that fun-filled story.
I would love to hear that.
Okay. So we have a hot tub in our backyard right off of our deck. So you just go outside, walk 5 feet across the deck, and there's our hot tub. So my husband and I have some hot tub time in the evenings, and it's dark in our backyard, so it's not like there's anybody around. And I'm sitting there, and I hear little scratching, scratching, scratching. We have little crushed rock around the hot tub that it was placed on. And I'm like, oh, it's the rabbits, because we have rabbits in our yard. And I look over the edge, and it is a skunk. It is not a rabbit, and it is right there. I don't see skunks in the wilds where we live. They do have them, of course, but I don't come across them because they're nocturnal, and I'm not. And I sort of didn't connect what I was seeing to a skunk. And then I ducked down in the hot tub, and my husband's like, what? And I'm like, there's a skunk. And I have refused to stick my head up because what if the skunk saw us and sprayed us? 1, we're not wearing any clothes. 2, we're not wearing any clothes. We're in our backyard, and we couldn't go back inside. This was summertime, or it was warm out. And the other thing is, like within 2 days, we were getting on a plane to go to visit my mother-in-law, and I was like, they're not going to let us on the plane because we're going to smell so bad. So, my husband stuck his head up and looked over, and it was gone. So he actually never saw it, but I know I saw a skunk. And we waited like 10 more extra minutes in the hot tub, longer than we really needed to. And then we hopped out super fast and ran inside. So I like to take real life scenarios like that one and add it in because they do happen. I did add a little bit more. I embellished the story substantially for the book, but it was based on real life.
Well, we have a hot tub too, but I've never seen a skunk.
I don't.
Spiders, but not do you have a special writing process or routine?
Not really at all. I spend a lot of my time just, in regular life, just walking around grocery store or wherever, and I think of ideas at random times. And so my books are based off of random things, like the skunk, for example, as a scene. Like, I know I want to put the skunk scene in the next book. I have to figure out how to do it because I think it would be enjoyable. I will say I had a little mishap with waxing one time, and that ended up in a book. Or I can't even think of other options. But I like to incorporate things that everyone can connect to into the story. So you might not be into a menage relationship, but you can relate to the heroine in some way and potentially put yourself in her place.
Right. Let's see. What hobby do you have? Hobbies?
I do martial arts. I've done martial arts for a long, since college, so that's a really long time. And I've been doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu for about 6 years, and so I get to roll around on the ground with sweaty men. That's my thing that I do a couple times a week. I have taken up yoga because I have found I need to wind down a little bit more. And so I go to our local rec center and do yoga. I enjoy that more and more. I also can crochet. I'm a seasonal crocheter. I think it's more of a winter thing. So for those of you who can knit, I can't knit, but I can crochet pretty well.
Don't get me started on my crocheting. They know I've been working on the same afghan for about 5 years now.
Oh, okay. So you're a crocheter. Way to go. Yeah. I do more like scarves. I did crochet my son a Viking hat. The one with the horns and the beard and everything. I made him one of those. Yeah, so I'm a seasonal crocheter. I like to hike. Since I live in the wild, wild west, there's a lot of places to go out hiking and biking. So I like to get outdoors a lot.
With bears or without bears?
I have lived in the wild, wild west since 1995, and I have yet to see a bear either in Colorado or in Montana. That doesn't mean they're not there. I personally have not seen one.
I don't know if I could trust that. How do you see? Well, we talked a little bit about this. How you come up with plots for your books?
Well, I do. I have to come up with characters and what their professions are. Obviously, with cowboys, it's kind of hard because, especially if they live on a ranch, how many professions can there be? And I do struggle with that at this point more and more, especially with the heroines too, because I want the heroines to be strong and well-educated and powerful in their own right, while the heroes might save her throughout the book. She ends up saving herself. The heroine is the hero of the book. If that makes sense? So it's important to me that I find that the heroine overcomes whatever obstacle she has or the past that she had to be powerful in herself. And the men are just eye candy, really, at that point.
Well, here's a question from Danielle.
No.
Do you know how to ride a horse?
I can ride a horse. When I was a kid, I rode horses at camp. That means like once or twice a year in the summertime for about an hour. When I lived in Montana, I took my parents on like a horseback riding trek, which was a couple hours. I have not been on a horse since then. I actually know very little about horses, and so I have to either be very cautious in my writing of horses, or I ask my friends who are horse people to confirm that I'm talking about a brown horse properly, because they all look the same to me.
Well, I wrote a book, 2 books ago, Ticket to, guys help me out, Ticket to Desire, which was, they went on a old-timey trail ride, and that's how they got together on that.
Yes, that sounds like fun. You would think I could ride more horses, but no one in my family really cares. And I'm actually a little scared of horses. I don't like to put my hand out and give them sugar. I'm afraid of their big teeth. I would rather ride one. Yeah, no. But I am a mother of an Eagle Scout. And so I was involved in Boy Scouts for a long time and was out in the woods doing all kinds of outdoorsy stuff. So I am well adept at being outdoors minus a horse.
Gotcha. So tell us what you're working on. What are you working on now?
I am working on a new series called Wolf Ranch, and it is being co-written by Renee Rose, who is a expert in writing shifter romance. And if you can get the idea from the series name of Wolf Ranch, it's shifter cowboys.
Wow. You're going paranormal?
Well, it is paranormal. It is, because they're shifters, but it is not heavy in the paranormal. For example, it's paranormal light. The hero, it is based on a ranch of shifters, and the hero in the first book is a shifter, but the feedback we've gotten is that it is even on the cowboy themes and the shifter themes.
So when you write about shifters, is there, like, since it's fantasy, is there one specific or usual behavior that is written about through, different authors? Does that make sense?
Right, it does. I understand where you're coming from. It's really more along the lines of the shifters seeking mates, just like any of my heroes who are looking for the one. I think I referenced in Bridgewater Menage about when I saw you was like lightning,
right?
Kind of like love at first sight. And I think that shifter romance is really good at that, because they either sense their true mate or they're searching for their true mate. And there's something about that that need to find the one is really appealing to me personally as a reader, and to a lot of other people. And so with these shifters, they are ultimately seeking their true mate, and they find them and recognize them immediately. So in book one, the hero is a rodeo champ, and the heroine is the doctor who is working the competition event at the arena. And they come across each other, and he knows she's the one. She's not keen on having a rodeo champ player interested in her. And so the same premise would have been in one of my books without the shifter theme. However, it just adds a little something extra.
So will they be menage as well?
They are not.
Oh.
Now, I take that back. Books 1, 2, and 3, which we have loosely planned out, are not. If we choose to write more than 3 books, it's possible that they will have a menage or 2 in there if we continue to keep going. But these are not. I was ready to take a little break from an extra guy. Sometimes it's hard to write an extra guy because they need their own problems, their own conflicts, and the things they need to resolve. And we needed to add the element of shifters into it. And so that extra complexity in itself makes the books a lot longer. So this book is actually almost twice as long as my usual books.
Really?
It is. It's a long book for me. So if we had an extra guy in there, it does get extra complicated.
So are there, since there's no, what do I want to say? When do they turn, or what makes them turn, or is all that stuff normal? I mean, one thing within the whole entire sphere of shifters?
I can't tell you much more on this story. I think you're just going to have to read it for yourself. If you would like, the book comes out a week from Thursday, which is the 9th.
Oh, wow.
I have ARC copies. I would be happy to share 2 of them, one with you, and if you would like to give away one to your listening audience, you are welcome to do so, and I can get information from them and share it with her.
Excellent. So guys, go ahead and comment between 1 and 100. I usually do this, and I forgot to do it. I'm going to write a number down on my sticky note. And so go ahead and comment with your name and a number for an ARC of the shifter book. There's a Vanessa, there's a lag time between when we hear something and they hear it. So that's why they're, don't immediately answer.
Well,
Is because
if you wish to, you can draw a winner a little bit later, and you can let me know tomorrow, and then I'd be happy to share the information.
There they're coming in.
There they go. I'd be happy to share the book with the winner tomorrow. It will be tomorrow no matter what, because after we're done, I have to go home to my group of cowboys and eat dinner. So I'd be happy to give that to you, and you can let your readers know what you think about Shifter Cowboys.
Okay, sounds good. So be sure to comment, peeps. Comment with a number between 1 and 100 for a chance at an ARC of Vanessa's new Shifter book.
And it's called Wolf Ranch Rough.
Rough. Gotcha. And do you have other things in the works as well? Well,
the 3 books are going to be called Wolf Ranch Rough, Wild, and Feral. And if we do more than 3, then I don't know what they're being called. And I don't know, Lizabeth, if you know this, but I also, this may be a surprise for you, but I also am Grace Goodwin. I co-write Grace Goodwin, which is sci-fi romance. And so I
didn't know that.
Yeah, so I have a lot to keep me occupied.
Wow. So how many books do you put out a year?
I used to put about 12 books a year as Vanessa, but I have cut that back a little bit. I think I aim between maybe 9 to 10 these days, because that's plenty.
Wow. I'm so impressed and so jealous. I'm just not that fast of a writer.
Well, I think that it's hard to compare different writers and their paces, because I bet you have a lot more exciting things going on in your life right now. I'm a very fast typer, but I also am an introvert, and so that makes a big difference. I don't have family in town except for my immediate husband and kids, so I don't do a lot of dinners with families and things like that. I know you mentioned that you had a yummy steak dinner with your daughter the other day, so that's super great.
So are you a outliner or are you a pantser?
That's a great question. I know a lot of people are always curious about this one. I'm funny because I have been a pantser forever and ever and ever. And now I'm turning into somewhat of a plotter, because what's happening is I'm writing the book. For example, I will write a book saying, okay, well, she is I think, give me a second. One of the Steel Ranch books, I think it's the second one. I think it's Wrangled. She is young and a graduate student who was based in Iceland doing like rock studies. I forgot the term I used. I set myself up for failure because in the first book, I mentioned her as being in Iceland as a rock study person. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I have to base a plot around a heroine being a graduate student in rock studies out of Iceland. That was a tough one. But so usually what happens is I write about a heroine who's done rock studies, a hero who's a vet, and another hero who's a lawyer. And then I just start writing the book. But then about halfway through, I stall completely because I have no story. I have no conflict. I have no internal issues that need to be resolved. And I have to stop and think about what I'm going to do with this book. So I'm tired of getting stuck in the middle. And so now I do plot quite a bit.
Yeah, the muddling middle.
The middle is just a mess. So I did not plot, and now I do, but loosely. I want to ensure that I have enough meat to start the story, but I don't have it completely embellished because my characters really do direct where the story goes.
Mm-hmm. Is that it? Subsurface.
Something like that. I apologize. I'm sure that's correct. I'm sure your term is absolutely right. I don't remember what I put in the book. Whatever it was, I had to tie it in, and it turns out that her mean mother wanted her to buy the property because of the mineral rights underneath the ground, which are actually a very important thing in Montana. So I had to come up with that. I was stunned that I was able to pull it off.
Well, I have an author friend, and I love giving her impossible characters to write about. And so far, she's met the challenge every time. I think.
Yes, you could do something in this group where people come up with character professions and what they do, and then you have to write a book based off of what they offer.
One time I challenged her to write a book about a feng shui person, and she did that. And then another time I told her hero had to be Horus. Well, she did that by calling him Ace. So.
You did a great job thinking it through. It is tricky sometimes, even when I don't paint myself into a corner.
Well, she's something. Let's see. Do we have any other questions that I have not gotten to? Because I promised not to keep you past 8. I think we got to everyone. If you want to come back in tomorrow and just check to see if anyone has reviewed the recording that might have a question for you, that would be wonderful. And is there anything you'd like to tell my readers tonight about what's coming up for you, or what to look for? Or
well, I just want to say thank you to everybody for taking the time to sit and listen and stare at this really hot guy for an hour with me. I appreciate it.
Hey, I was here.
And to see your lovely face too. I really appreciate you guys listening in. I hope that I'm more exciting than I sound. As I said, my next book is Shifter Cowboys. I hope you'll give them a shot. The title is, let's see, Wolf Ranch Rough. On my Facebook pages, you can see covers and things like that. I can't show you now because you have to keep looking at this really attractive man. I know I would love to hear from all of you and let me know what you think about it, or any of my books. If you have questions, you can always PM me on Facebook or send me an email.
And guys, I hope that I've introduced you to a new wonderful author that you're going to be enjoying, and I hope she will become a one-click author for you. She is for me. And I just thank you so very much, Vanessa, for coming to talk to us. And I've really enjoyed it, and thank you for saying yes when I asked.
Well, thank you for having me. I had a great time. I hope everyone stays safe and healthy and has a great week.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, and I'll say goodbye now.
I will give an actual hand wave. There, wait, there's my hand.
She has a hand. I've seen her, guys. Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you. Bye.
And now let me announce our, wasn't she fun? I just love talking to her. I could talk to her for so long. Let's talk about our April book. I'm excited to announce this one as well. She is also someone that I read and quickly got into, and I bet many of you are going to already be fans, but I am now going to show you who our April book club is going to be featuring. Vivian Ahrens, and I hope that I'm saying her name correctly. Vivian Ahrens. I'm not real sure, but she will be with us on April the 27th at our usual time of 7, and our featured book is going to be The Cowgirls Forever Love. I think book 2 is coming out soon. This is book 1 to a new series, and so this will be our featured book, and I will have the links up tomorrow for you to go ahead and get started on our April book. Those of you that are still with me, remember to comment with a number between 1 and 100 for a chance at an ARC copy of Vanessa's new shifter book that's coming out, I believe she said, in a couple weeks. So be sure to comment with that number. And if there are no other questions or comments, I'm going to close this out for the night, and we'll be chatting again soon. Thanks so much for showing up. Bye-bye.